Kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome to this video in which I'm going to go through the first assessment for the course Digital and Collaborative Transformation in Learning and Leadership. And because that's quite a long course title, we just call it Transformation for short. There are two assessments in this course, and this is the first of those. Of course, this information applies both to the postgraduate certificates in digital and collaborative learning and the Master of Contemporary Education Part 1, because the first part of the MCE and the PG Cert are exactly the same. So this applies to both. So as I mentioned, this is a combination of both courses, and this course is called, sorry, both programs. This course is called 8001. The second course in the DCL MCE Part 1 is 8002. So let's focus on this one, which is called Transformation for short. And so the first assessment, we tend to call it Transformation 1 for short. Now, it's a summative competency-based assessment. If you haven't come across competency-based assessment before, it means that instead of getting, say, a percentage grade or a letter grade back, it's either competent or not competent, or in fact, pass with requirements as the other possible grade. And I'll talk about those more as we get to that stage. So I'll move on now and just talk about what the actual assessment is and then return to the competency-based assessment. So the title of this assessment is Presentation on Educational Innovation Through Digital and Collaborative Learning. Hei whakaataranga, e pa ana ki ngā aronga mataranga, ho mate ako, a mate hiko, ako mahi ngā tahi hoki. And one of the reasons for mentioning that we have the title in Te Reo Māori is that we also have the rubric in Te Reo Māori, and of course you can also submit your assessments in Te Reo Māori if you wish to do so. And if you wanted to submit in sign language, we would also obviously enable that as well. So what is this assessment all about? Well, as you can see, it's a presentation. Well, what do we mean by a presentation? In our case, what we mean is a video. It's a group video, 15 to 17 minutes long. So this group assessment is intended to be for groups of 2 to 4. And you can see at the bottom of the page there, if you want to do it in a group of more than 4, that's usually okay. It might be that you're in a group from, say, the same school, and maybe you want to do something together, or maybe there's 5 of you. But please talk to your OHU facilitator, because there's obviously a limit on the size of groups that can meaningfully collaborate on a 15-minute video and all participate. Now, it is possible for you to do this individually if you've got a very good reason for it, but we do kind of very strongly encourage you to do this in a group because collaboration is a key part of the program, as of course is digital technologies, which is why this first assessment is a video and not written work. So for the other assessments coming later, you can do written work or you can continue to make videos. But because of our focus on digital and collaborative learning, this first assessment is all about being digital and collaborative. So these are the rubric items. I'll start with the two at the end because the reason they're in blue is that you'll find they're on the end of all 4 assessments. Presenting your learning clearly and being research informed and citing your sources in APA format. And I'll talk more about those when we look at the actual details of the rubric. What I want to just cover off now is the first 3 items, which are the ones that are unique to this assessment. Critically analyze changing educational environments and outcomes, evaluate digital technologies in educational practice, and evaluate collaboration in educational practice. And as you can see, this is kind of big picture stuff, and we're setting the scene for contemporary education, digital technologies, collaborative learning, these kind of big themes that are at the heart of both the PG Cert and the Masters. So we want you to be looking at important things that are going on in education. And it's very important that you note that this isn't about just writing a general thing about broad ideas. What we really want you to do is to engage with things that matter to you. There are many, many things happening in educational environments. There are many, many possible outcomes of changes in what happens in education. We want you to choose and talk about the ones that are most important to you. The same is true of the other 2. We want you to talk about digital technologies, but we don't want general stuff, sort of ChatGPT waffle. What we want is you specifically talking about what's actually happening in educational practice with examples. Same thing with collaboration. And I'll pick that up a little bit more detail in a moment when we go through the actual rubric as it appears in the LMS. Coming back to competency-based assessment, what we're hoping for is that you do the assessment and you get a competent grade, and then you can just move on. It's possible that when we do the assessment, we may feel that there are some competencies in the assessment, for example, elements in the rubric, that have not been sufficiently addressed. If that's the case, then you might get a pass with requirements grade. That doesn't mean you have to redo everything. What it means is that we'll give you feedback on which elements we think need a little bit more work in order to demonstrate those competencies. And then you'll only need to resubmit those bits. And it might even just be one element of the rubric. It might be a very small part. Um, but we just ask you to make sure that you've met all of the requirements of the assessment. When you resubmit, you'll either get your competent grade, hopefully. It's possible, if we still feel that there are things that are missing, that you might get a not yet competent. It's also possible to get a not yet competent if your original submission is way off the mark. So if we feel that you kind of missed the point of all of the competencies, for example, then it doesn't really meet the pass with requirements grade, you'll get a not yet competent. So there's kind of two ways of ending up with a not yet competent. It's possible with a not yet competent, you may need to rework the whole assessment. That does depend on the original sort of feedback. The most important thing to note is that once you've got a not yet competent, you've only got one resubmission. So really do pay attention to our feedback and make sure that you address it. If you're not sure, if you need some assistance about being clear about exactly what's required, please do talk to your OHU facilitator and they'll be happy to help you out to make sure that you don't end up not getting your competent grade with any resubmission. But, be assured, most people just get competent, and then quite often the pass with requirements that we end up asking for are quite minor. So don't sort of fret too much about the risk of getting a pass with requirements or a not yet competent. It is relatively unusual. Okay, let's come back to the rubric. So if you go into the LMS and have a look at the rubric, this is what it looks like. And on the left-hand side, you can see the criteria that I've already mentioned. But on the right-hand side, under the description column, there's just some hints to make sure that you kind of address the things we're asking you to do. So, for example, in the first one, we're asking you about education environments in different scopes, so globally, locally. So rather than just kind of picking one environment, we are looking for a range of different places where education is changing. And we are specifically asking you for the impact. So yes, there are changes happening, but what do they mean? What are the consequences of those? And as I said before, it's up to you to choose the ones that you think are important. We're not expecting everybody to talk about the same things across the different groups, just something that you and your group think is important. Digital technologies in educational practice, we want illustrative examples. We want particular tools in particular contexts, and we want to know what the impacts of those are. Of course, this might come out of the literature. You might have found some articles that say this digital tool in educational practice led to these results, and it may well be mixed in with your own reflections. It might be tools that you individually or as a group have used in the past. What are the impacts of those? Same thing for collaboration, illustrative examples. What's in the literature? What's in your experience? What can you draw together and talk about the impacts of collaborative practice? So again, we're looking for detail. We're looking for things that are reflective of the interests of the group, not some sort of homogenous generality that anyone could have handed in. In terms of presenting your learnings clearly, presenting things in a logical order is important, particularly when you've got a group presentation. You've got to make sure that it kind of strings together with a nice narrative. And that narrative does also need to tell the story of your learning. So we kind of want a bit of collective reflection. So not a series of completely individual reflections, but what have you all learned together in this collaborative process from addressing the main parts of the rubric. In terms of being research informed, has your work been informed by quality assured research? Now, we'll help you over the coming weeks with using the e-library that we provide to you through the LMS, and we'll also be pointing out how you can do your reference lists in APA format. So we're happy to help you with that as well. The criteria is that we want you to use at least 8 sources. They don't all have to be academic journals. It's fine if you've got good resources that happen to be web pages, blog posts, YouTube videos, as long as they're from credible sources. But we do also expect to see, things that you found online in academic libraries. So those are the requirements. That's what we're after. Last slide here to share is just showing you what the page looks like in the LMS. On the right-hand side, you can see a screen grab there that's got the submission date. There are 3 tabs. The first tab, the one that comes up by default, is called Details, and that's the same information kind of that I've touched on. There's also a link to some shared requirements. The Criteria tab in the middle is the one that I showed you the screen grab of, and then the third tab, Submission, is where you can actually submit your assessment. You can go and look at this now. You can also see the second assessment in week 15 that is also available from the beginning of the course. So please do go and have a look at these assessments, make sure you know what's coming, and then start kind of working towards them as soon as you can. So I hope that's useful. I hope that gives you a bit of an introduction to what the assessment is all about. Wish you the best of luck in coming up with your group videos. Ka kite.